and welcome back to yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. In this week's episode, I will start by giving a short update to my portfolio, and then we are going to look at a comment from one of my viewers about how he was feeling when he was speculating. So let's start with a quick portfolio update. The first thing we immediately notice is that there was a green circle for this week's episode. If we then go to the portfolio values tab, you can see that I'm up $3,300 compared to last week. So this is a new all-time high for the portfolio. But as always, perhaps more importantly is I have not done any new investments. I'm sitting and holding. I was actually trying to do a purchase last week, but unfortunately the shares didn't drop to a price where my order was filled. If we then continue to look at performance for the portfolio, well, then we can clearly see here that the blue line is above the red line, meaning that my portfolio has gains. But how much and how am I doing compared to, let's say, the S&P 500, for instance? So if we scroll down here, then I have done the calculation. So what I have done here is the 44,000 here, that's the value today minus the cost today. The 17,000 is the value at the end of last year minus the cost last year. That gives me a difference of 27,000. That is the gains which I have had this year. If I then take the 27,000 and divide it by the value of the portfolio today, namely the 224,000, that gives me a percentage gain of a little more than 12%, meaning year to date, this is the result which my portfolio has delivered. Keep in mind, this is excluding any dividends. So is 12% a good return? Well, I'm pretty satisfied with the results so far, especially when we compare it to the S&P 500 here, which you can see is down a little more than 16% year to date. How the year will end, of course, is a completely different story, which no one knows yet. And it becomes particularly interesting to me when people are telling me that value investing is dead. I of course know that 11 months is way too short of a time period to look at to draw any conclusions. But I mean, so far it doesn't look like value investing is dead. But in order to draw any conclusions, unfortunately, we will have to wait at least 5 or 10 years to see how my portfolio is performing with this real life example. Obviously, you can look at other investors and see how they have been performing over much longer time periods. But I clearly believe that value investing is not dead. I at the same time also do not believe in this complete market hypothesis, meaning that everything should be priced into every single stock at every single point in time. If we then continue to my favorites tab, namely the dividends tab, then we can see that this has been quite a good week as well, since I have received dividends from Unum Group, which is now my biggest dividend contributor after I sold out of Store Capital, and at the same time I have received dividends from Citigroup as well, so a little more than $230 in dividends, so that's actually quite good. And that brings me to a total of $630 for November so far. If we then go back to the overview, I can scroll all the way to the top, just so you can see how each individual stock has been performing within this week. Then you have the possibility to pause the video now. If we then continue to the viewer who has had experience with speculation, then the comment goes like this. For those who follows, I have been following LMG from the beginning, and I have just experienced something that I would like to share. The last 2 months or so I have speculated pure speculation in the interest rate, and I did not like it. Long story short, I was refinancing my mortgage when buying a new house and was speculating in that the interest rate would go further up before my refinancing deadline. Bond price, obligationskurs, was at some point at 74, meaning I should only pay back 75% of my debt. That's a good amount when you owe more than $150,000 in mortgage bonds. I said to myself that the interest rate on bonds would go up and only up, but it went a little down and I ended up on 80%, losing 5%. The important part, in those weeks I was feeling miserable. I was watching the interest rate daily and each day it went just a little up. I had such stomach. I was nervous, being in a bad mood that even my wife noticed. Just because I forgot the words from Peter Lynch, no one can predict the interest rate. But I learned something good. I don't have the sight to speculate with real money and big money to me. The investments I have done so far are boring passive funds and companies that I know, or at least know the market/field the companies are operating within. I should stick to the long-term game. No speculation for me other than the casino with friends. I cannot predict the interest rate. I hope it somehow makes sense. I'm not a big writer, and perhaps this is also why it took me so long to follow up. So first of all, thank you very much for sharing such a personal story. And I'm truly happy to hear that you have learned a very valuable lesson, namely that speculation is not for you, especially not with big money. And I mean, it's quite interesting. Your dilemma here is probably the biggest investment that 99% of all people will face, namely mortgaging their house or their place to live. It is actually quite interesting how you describe your feeling when you are speculating. This thing about that your stomach actually hurts, that you are feeling physically ill when you are taking a risk which you're not comfortable with. There is a reason why a lot of very good investors say that it requires a good stomach to be a good investor, simply due to the fact that you actually feel physically ill if you're taking a risk which you're not comfortable with. So once again, thank you very much for sharing such a personal story. I really hope this will help others to not having to go through the same stomach pain as you. Unfortunately, I don't think that is the case, since this is a lesson that most people cannot learn until they have actually tried it on their own body. So that actually sums it up for yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. So if you have enjoyed the content and made it all the way to the end of the video, then please consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. And until I see you next time, bye!